All right. So, Channing, I have so many questions. Like, my notes are like so crazy.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
there are so many themes. I mean, down to like the headboard that Turquoise had. Like, I have that headboard at my mom's house right now. It was like just so many moments in the film I want to talk about. But I guess like let's kind of talk a little bit about you. If you can just give us like an intro, a background on you, and then kind of lead it into just want to hear about your experience growing up in Fort Worth and what Juneteenth meant for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because like so much of the film is really about my growing up in a way, because like I wrote this film about really that was accessible. Like I wrote it around like the places and spaces I grew up around. And so like the bar is like a bar that I've been going to for a really long time, and they're family friends, and like the funeral home are family friends who just like, I've always like literally every short that I've made, they've participated in some way. And so my formative years was spent in this community, and this is really close knit Black community in Fort Worth that is called the South Side of Fort Worth. They now call it, I think, the historic South Side, but it was basically at one time this really like bustling, community for Black business and Black commerce, and I think Black home ownership. And now it's like people are still just kind of holding on to the places that they still have and passing them down through generations, but it's being gentrified. So, I, in a way, I was seeking to find a way to just preserve, these places in the community on film. And I also just love the people so dearly that they just have this sense of just like, beauty and dignity and resilience that I wanted to try to bring to film, which was a tall order because I go and like literally, and I'm probably telling y'all stuff that I haven't told other folks, which means I'm amongst family, but um, I would go in that bar, just to kind of feel the energy of it while I was writing. And I even like worked in it for a couple of nights to kind of understand what Turquoise would experience. And I would literally always see people doing stuff that I just wish I had the camera up for and wanted to shoot right then. So I have this propensity, I think, as an artist and as a filmmaker to really just want to capture life in a way. But I obviously am not a documentarian, so narratively I have to try to build that into the script. And so I think for me, I grew up in this neighborhood, and my entry into cinema started in a non-traditional way because I started in community theater. In that same neighborhood was a small community theater called Sojourner Truth that my mom would take me to, and I got to see like these really nuanced, multi-layered Black plays, like For Colored Girls, like Pearly and things like that. And they also were really neat because they would they would bring Black actors to this theater. So like I can remember seeing Ruby Dee and Ossie Davis. Like I have a picture with them like as a little kid. Like, so all of this was just super inspirational for me. And like I later kind of moved away from the theater. I think the theater closed, and so I moved away from it, but I got really into literature, like, Toni Morrison and Alice Walker and Dr. Maya Angelou and all the literary greats, all of our greats. And one of the things that I got from those books and those experiences and reading those books was like, I saw like these really like multi-layered stories about Black women and their journeys. And I think that really inspired me to want to create stories around Black women, very specific stories. And but I didn't have any idea that I would even get into cinema. I thought that at that time I just wanted to be an actor. And I even went out to California after I finished college. I majored in. I'm giving y'all the quick fast story, sorry, but I majored in theater in my undergrad, and then went out to California and like, oh, I'm going to be an actor. And I started auditioning for stuff, and like what I didn't see was kind of those complex stories that I had in my head. And but I was still like doing little shorts and stuff, and I was in a USC thesis film, and I remember the moment where I was like, this is like really cool because it was such a small crew, and it looked like a way that I could have access. It was small enough to where I was like, okay, maybe I could do this. And I said, okay, I'll apply to SC. And I heard that it was really difficult to get in, but I was like, I'll just apply and see what happened, even though I never really even picked a camera up or, having technical acumen. And USC is big on story. And so I was able to get into SC for cinema school, and then went to cinema school. And that was helpful for me in particular, because I found a way to, like, I learned screenwriting, the technical acumen. I'm still not super, super technical, but it caught up enough for me to be able to tell my stories, because at that time, I think we were shooting our own stuff. And I think that, all the little things along the way just kind of added up to where I am now. I could just see thematically, like in the stories that I tell.
It's really crazy. I'm jumping around from my intended notes that you said that you're not a documentarian. But for this film, and I apologize for the fireworks, y'all. I live in Bed-Stuy. It's popping tonight.
I loved it. I love it. I'm in Fort Worth. Not much is going on over here, so that's exciting. So cool.
We 3 weeks in to daily fireworks, so I apologize if y'all hear them in the background when my mic is on. But yeah, so you said that you're not necessarily a documentarian, but it was just something that was so. People say that films are authentic, right? And I think films are authentic in their portrayal of a certain situation or a story or a dynamic, but it literally felt like a documentary in so many ways. Like, there were so many markers that were that, like, me and my friends were texting while we're watching, that like we had or we experienced, or even like the dynamic between Turquoise and Kai, like that single mom daughter relationship. Like, it felt like a documentary. It didn't feel like a caricature of anything. It didn't feel like a caricature of Fort Worth, of that relationship, of, Turquoise's character, the church. So, like, where did you find like such an authentic voice? Because you said that, this is your community, but I think also too, there's this like, there's an urge to kind of like add a little pizzazz, sometimes when we're storytelling, but it just felt like just regular Black folk that we know.
I mean, it's interesting because that's I think about that a lot, and I really don't, and I don't know where that comes from. Like, I really came from a family that had a strong presence in the community, and they have a strong presence in politics. Like, politics is totally not for me, but like I was around it all the time, and they were people that spoke up, and I was always the one in the room just kind of observing, but I still have that sense of being fine. Like, I really love being a Black woman, and I don't feel that I have to explain myself, a lot to other people to make it palatable. And I think that often, I think probably I really had a strong support system, I think, producing wise, because I think probably in different hands, people would say, we need to kind of shape and adjust this film so that it could be received by other folks. But I really was creating a film that I wanted to portray the people as authentically as possible. And in doing that, like, I didn't feel like I needed to explain certain things, just certain nuances, even about being a Black woman. Like, I just felt like she should just be walking in that space, like I felt like all the characters should, like, and not always as a writer director, I'm approaching things as humanly as possible. Like, I'm not a documentarian, but I have done some documentary work in film school. And I love to observe, and I love things to be as truthful as possible. So I'm always trying to get to that in the narrative. I'm not sure what else I could say about that. I'll keep thinking about it, but I'm just looking for the truth constantly.
Yeah, and that just really showed through in the film, that there wasn't an attempt to push an agenda. There wasn't an attempt to get us to think or feel a certain way. It just was, which is something that, like, we don't see a lot in film. So that's one thing that walking away that I really appreciated from Miss Juneteenth. So I kind of got a little ahead of myself because I just had to ask you that one question. But can you walk us through the journey from the idea to Sundance to now here with the launch today?
I mean, it's kind of crazy because, like, you know, so much of my life experience is in the film. That's why, like, these films are so scary, you know, because you just like, you know, it took us so long to make it. But like, I look back and I'm like, oh, that's my childhood. Like, that's this, that's that. Like, there's moments, and I'm telling y'all all my business.
We
I've done,
family tonight.
I've done so good up to this point and like reining it in. But you know, like there's so many things like in the film that, you know, I just had to like lift off the pages of my childhood. And it's such a personal film. So it's a film that I feel like, you know, I've been, you know, in a way, my life experiences have all been contributing to here, you know. And I was always, it's interesting because in film school, like I have all these little films that all like, even in Los Angeles, when they're telling you to go out and they, you know, shoot your little 5-minute short or 10-minute short or whatever it is, they were all films that, you know, were about, most of them were about Black women leads, and they were in like really Southern looking environments. So I was always looking to kind of get back home to create these stories. And kind of the journey, and let me get to the point about the journey, because I know people want to kind of hear about how you can get this kind of film made, or a film made, period. But you know, my influences too are a big part of this. But anyway, so I graduated film school, and technically I graduated in 2011, but you can stay at USC as long as you can to finish your thesis film, and you probably should so that you can get the support, you know. And so I really started writing it in earnest in 2013 after I finished my thesis film. And my thesis film I did, and, you know, sent it out into the world, and it had some reception, but it wasn't like in the Sundances and all this kind of stuff, you know. And but what I gained from it was I had shot that film in the community. And so when I started writing this Juneteenth, you know, I was already like, you know, I was super familiar from living there, but I was super familiar in shooting there too. And Miss Juneteenth was much bigger when I first started. Like, it was going in a dozen places, but like I had the good fortune of like, in film school, I met my creative partner, who is now coincidentally my husband as well. And he was from North Carolina, I was from Texas, and we were both making these Black Southern stories. And so we bonded over that. And he was there just to kind of, you know, help me rein it in, but be that trusted person. And I would ask, you know, I would urge people, if you don't have a trusted person, to like look at your art, to try to connect with one, because that's what film school gave me, you know, a relationship where I felt comfortable in sharing my art, and there was someone who I could trust, who even had a similar background in a way. He's not, you know, he's a Black man in America. He has a different perspective, you know, Black man growing up in the South, but he also understood the South in a way, you know, like, and could, you know, help me also protect the story, you know, because I think sometimes we can get in situations where we're trying to make the story more palatable or whatever it is, or more marketable or whatever, and your instincts and your passion for wanting to make the story in the first place kind of, you know, it kind of drifts away from you. So I think you have to protect those first instincts. And so Neil, who's, you know, who you've been corresponding with, who is my husband, who produced the film, we started pushing the film up the hill together. Like, we literally would go out and pitch the film together. And then he had this idea that we would start trying to get into these different development programs. Like the Austin Film Society is a Texas-based program, but like San Francisco Film is, you know, if anybody's, are you guys all filmmakers here? Okay, so some people are just interested, but if anybody's like interested in filmmaking, there's people that have specific programs for filmmakers. So we went through like San Francisco Film, and then we went through the Sundance Institute, and they were helpful because they're a development program. Everybody's familiar with the Sundance Film Festival, I assume, and they have an institute that really develops filmmakers' work, you know, and protects, I think, the artist in a way. And once we went through that, they connected us with more producing partners, you know, some that have shot films locally. And then those producing partners had just produced a film with the financier that, you know, they were familiar with, who then decided to also finance Miss Juneteenth. So that was kind of the short version of the long country road.
No, it's totally fine. Look, we family, so talk as much as you need tonight. That's
I'm
a
talking fast. I don't want to keep y'all forever. I know y'all been watching the movie all day.
And so, oh man, I have y'all. You don't have no idea how many notes I have, and they're all over the place. I guess I want to talk a little bit about the food culture that's in the film. So this weekend is the second annual Juneteenth Community Festival for Weeksville Heritage Center, and a project launched last year called Meals as Collective Memory, where we were collecting oral histories from Black restaurateurs in Crown Heights and Bed-Stuy, to similar to what you said, like to preserve the history of those spaces, because these neighborhoods are being gentrified, and we wanted to be able to kind of cast these stories in bronze, right? These oral histories in bronze.
Mhm.
And so I just want to talk a little bit about the Fort Worth food culture that was showing up in the film, from the ribs to the sign with the chopped barbecue, which I'm craving now after seeing it. And when you talk about smoking ribs, I'm so hungry right now. But if you could just share a little bit about that.
I mean, that's just very forward. And that particular bar, I was literally, lifting it out of life. I think the production designer may have done that sign in particular, but it's just like a sign I've seen there before, that maybe they couldn't find or something. I don't remember why they didn't have it, but, it was just all those little details were what I experienced being in there. And they're the ones who have the best ribs in the city or whatever, but they're ribs that only show up when, the man wants to cook them, but that's just a part of the cultural experience of being in that place. There's even this even in the party, you kind of see the aluminum foil thing and people come out and, just put food out. That's just cultural. That's the way we, connect and connect over food and share food, and that's the way we nurture each other and show love to each other. So that was a big part of it. And to be honest with you, fun fact, I would have wanted to show much more of the food culture if I could, but it was just another thing that I get. My producers probably got pretty frustrated with me along the way, because I was always fussing about world. I was more world, more, you know what I'm saying? And we're really shooting this film in support of Turquoise's journey, and have to be able to capture film, her arc from start to finish. But if it had been up to me, I would have just tossed it all in there.
So I guess we can transition now to talk a little bit about Black girlhood, mamahood, daughterhood. I think why I was so attached to this film, besides that one scene with the hot comb that scared me and had flashbacks to Easter, the way that comb was sitting over that stove, was the relationship between Turquoise and Kai. So I also grew up with a single mom, and my mom was a stage mom as well. So I really resonated with that in the film. And if you could just maybe share a little bit about the character development of Turquoise, because so many layers were unfolding as the movie went on, instead of a lot of films where you kind of get everything about the character up front. Why did you make that decision to expand her in that way? And I guess what your intentions were for viewers in terms of how we view Turquoise.
I mean, I think it was important to get to know who she is as a character before we lay out all these, we just lay out all these facts about Turquoise's life. I wanted people to get to know where she was right then, and then be able to follow the journey with her to, this journey of discovery that she's going on. Because the thing about this film is so much of what she's navigating is also internal, and I just didn't want people focused on details that I felt were unnecessary up front. There's a certain sense of judgment we can have right away. And I wanted to kind of peel that back so that we're really with her and, on this path to discovery with her at the same time. And that was kind of difficult because, to be honest, I'm the kind of person, I want to make sure that people get it. I was terrified that people wouldn't get it. And then I think more of it happened in the edit too, that I was like peeling stuff back because it was an instinctual feeling. I mean, there was more that we shot more on the page with her and Ronnie's relationship. And I just remember the moment where that scene where they're in the bedroom and she finds out that he, used whatever money for the car shop thing or whatever. And I remember watching in the editing room and I was like, okay, that's it, and it scared the heck out of me because I wanted things to be so explicit that people couldn't say, well, I don't understand this, I don't understand that. But sometimes I think we can feel it, as people, we can just feel the moment. It just doesn't have to be so explicit that it's just like on the page, on the screen every time. Like as human beings, like we're so smart and we're so intuitive, we just kind of get it. So that was a gamble, to be honest. Like all of it was a gamble, not telling us stuff up front. And I've even read things where people are like, it's not explicit enough. I don't, and I get it. But just for me, I also have this kind of, I think style wise, I tend to have this poetic tone in my work. And so I wanted it to feel more than tell too. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's just what I'm coming up with now. That's just what I'm feeling right now.
No, I mean, it's exactly what you said. Like, you didn't feel the need to explain anything in the film, and who got it was who the film was for. You know what I mean? Like, film doesn't have to be for everyone. Everyone can enjoy it and watch it, but there are just certain like moments and themes and just understandings that will only go to particular people. And I think that's what makes films like this so special, because it is so coded. You know what I mean? Like me and my friend while we're watching, we're texting, and when she goes in a funeral home, we're like, oh, she do bodies, like that's just something that's just so it was just so many coded moments in the film. And I want to just kind of shout out some folks in the comment section. Jermaine was saying that moment was so powerful, and it felt like the moment where she decided to bet on herself.
Yeah.
And Tamika Ward also said it was a turning point in the film for Turquoise as well.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. You guys are amazing.
Yeah, because I even I wrote in my notes that, when you're a single mom, especially when you're a young mom, you put your entire life off to raise your child, right? And so because she had Kai while she was still in college, which are these developmental years, she was kind of in an arrested development for 15 years, right? Like she couldn't move the way she wanted to or do the things she wanted to do. Like when Kai tried to shame her for dancing, and she's like, I did what I had to do to feed you. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so, yeah, that moment was really, really important, because I was like, if we don't get rid of this Ronnie, I was so sick.
Y'all need to be live tweeting this stuff. I would love it. Like I'm just getting, people are teaching me Twitter, so I'm fascinated. Like this is so cool. Y'all need to be I was reading somebody live tweeting the movie earlier, and I was just screaming, laughing. So no, that all this stuff is great. But no, you're right. Like the funny thing is, I've recently, it's something really, you probably hear it in the background, but you probably hear the sounds of my almost 2-year-old daughter in the background, right at the same time in which they said they would green light this movie. I found out I was pregnant, and I was terrified, because I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot do this. And I was not one of those pregnant people no problem. I was sick the whole time. And I was still working. I was working in a TV room, and I was keeping it moving, but it was just a lot, and I was worried about not being able to do the film, and my husband was super encouraging. And I also come from, as far as women are concerned, women that keep it moving, I don't believe that that's always what you should do. I think you should pay attention to yourself and honor yourself. So just know that that's my point of view. But, I was trying to figure out whether I could make the movie or not. And it really, I ended up being able to make it, but my daughter literally was so young, she was just tiny. And there were so many times when I myself, I literally spent any money I had to get somebody to just hold her so that I can run back and breastfeed her between takes, So it was you know, I was grappling with many of the same things that Turquoise was grappling with, you know, trying to figure out how to take care of my daughter and trying to figure out how to maintain this dream, that my own dreams, and how to reconcile my own dreams, because there was so much of it where I was just like, I don't even know if I can keep doing this. Like, she's the most important thing to me, you know. So it really changed my perspective in the film. Like, I really had this tougher version of Turquoise before I became a mom. And then after I became a mom, like, I just remember, like, my daughter was born. And I thought, I was kind of telling y'all earlier, I'm from kind of these women that keep it moving and they're strong and keep it going no matter what. And then I had my daughter, and she was like this little, like, tiny thing. And I was just so used to being so rough and tumble and keeping it going. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I got to protect this girl. I don't want anything to happen to her ever in life, you know? And I felt this like sense of like protection, and also this sense of joy and love for this human being that I needed to protect. And I wanted to find a way to bring that into like Kai and Turquoise's relationship. You know, so I was constantly like navigating, like, how do I do that? And there were a couple of scenes I think that were added to support that. And then even in my directing with Nicole as Turquoise, you know, I would be constantly saying, you know, let's layer this with joy.
Hmm. Yeah, can we actually talk a little bit about Nicole and how she became Turquoise? She ate that, like, Nicole Bari. I think the first time I saw her was in Shame. She can literally play anything or anybody. It's insane.
Yeah.
She's able to morph. So we can talk a little bit about her casting and the experience having her on the film.
Yeah, I really, you know, I was the type of person, you know, Hollywood has this thing where they're like, you know, you really want to try to cast, you know, people that are visible in the market. It brings more eyes, you know, and all of this stuff. But I was like going against that in the sense that I just wanted the best actors for the part. And I've been familiar, like you, with Nicole's work for some time. And, you know, the script went out, and then um, we really saw there were a lot of like fantastic actors that reached out about the role. And I got to see Nicole read for the role. And, you know, she's such a, she's really brilliant in the sense that she can bring, you know, so much nuance to the role. Just, you know, she can bring so much just with a look, you know. And so I really needed someone of that caliber for Turquoise's journey, because like she navigates this entire emotional journey, just like her lost disappointments. You know, we see her trying to figure out like what she wants for herself. You know, we need to see her love for her daughter. Like those things were all essential. And so I knew that she could pull that off. And so, you know, and I really wanted this multi-layered performance. Like that's just part of who I am as a director. And you know, I was talking about authenticity earlier, and I wanted someone who could kind of, you know, really walk in the role and give this really human performance. So that's how Nicole came to the role. And she came in a little early, and we, you know, she got to see the space and kind of be in the space of the bar that was like the home away from home kind of thing, and hear the accents, like local accents, and kind of pick up on the accents. And you know, she's terrific in the role. And then Kendrick, obviously, I saw somebody say something about Kendrick. Make sure Kendrick sees their so he's so great. You know, he's from Houston, Texas. And that's another thing. Authenticity was important, you know, and the accent's different from Houston and Fort Worth, even though it's all Texas. But he's really so good. And he's another one who's like such a nuanced actor. And, you know, I was terrified all the time about the casting, because I just wanted to get it right for Texas, you know. And you know, but now I look back and I was like, yeah, absolutely. You know, we finally figured out kind of the perfect pairing. You know, they definitely have chemistry. And then the chemistry between her and her daughter, Alexis, her daughter Kai in the film, but her real name is Alexis Shikaze, and she's a breakout actor. She is from Dallas, and I really wanted, you know, for that younger character to have someone who could, you know, be from the area, if that's what we were going to do, because I just, like an independent film, like you all know, it's just like you got to go. And you don't have time to kind of, be correcting stuff in the moment. And that young woman, it was her first film, and she's so fantastic. And she's just someone you want to reach out to. And that's a big part of why she was cast.
Chloe, who's the H-Town hottie in the chat, she said she noticed the difference between the Dallas-Fort Worth and Houston accent. So she appreciated that, the way y'all finessed that.
Yeah.
Anybody, if you have any questions, please drop them in the comments.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, Kendrick really listened to the locals when he got in, and, really picked up on like the hard R's and stuff like that. He talks about that in interviews. But he's really great in the role, and, a really special actor.
And another thing that I also loved about the film was the HBCU culture that was happening. So I'm a Clark Atlanta Panther, but I loved like hearing like Texas Southern, Prairie View, because those are schools that you don't hear about a lot. But like if you're from Texas or Louisiana, these are schools that are like a big deal, So I really appreciate it. We got FAMU in the building. Hey, Robin. So I really appreciated the HBCU culture as well, like the reference to the dancing dolls and all that. So for a lot of folks who may not have like grown up in such heavy HBCU culture, can you talk a little bit about the ways HBCUs influence the community itself that they resided within?
I mean, the funny thing was like HBCUs had such an impact on me because I started at a small college called Bennett College in Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I ended up not finishing from Bennett. I finished from a school back in Texas, but like once a bell, always a bell kind of thing. So like they're near and dear to my heart. And I remember what's so interesting is that like my friends that I still like my friends, are from Bennett, even though I went on to a much larger university, and I went on to like USC. Like my friends who I'm still are like my core friends are from Bennett. But I think the other part of like the Battle of the Band stuff and everything was like, that's what I would see in my formative years was like, I'm from Fort Worth, and we would go to Dallas to like the state fair and see like the PV Grambling game. And I just remember being mesmerized by like the Battle of the Bands and those things. So I just reimagined that, Kai would have had that experience, and it would have been an experience that inspired her. I don't know if you all have had experiences like this, but, there's been plenty of times where I've been to like see a piece of art, just like a play or a concert or, a dance, see the dance like Battle of the Bands, and just the energy, you can just feel it, and it's something that's inspirational and instinctual. And I wanted to bring a sense of that to the film, how Kai would be inspired without really being able to know exactly what that dream was. She just knows that she wants to dance and can feel it when she moves.
Yeah. And where to go next? There's so much to say, so many questions, and I don't want to like take up any questions folks have. So I'll do my next to last question. I see Jermaine dropped the question in here. Where to go next? Oh, okay. Let's talk about the impact of local community organizations, because in your introduction, you talked about being introduced to arts and culture through these small organizations that were put together by folk in the community. And as we're seeing right now, a lot of money is going out to institutions, not necessarily small Black ones. But actually, Bennett got a check from ASCAP today, I saw. So shout out to the Bells of Bennett. But if you could just talk a little bit about the importance of small community organizations.
Yeah, I mean, they were game changers for me, because I don't, like I was saying, there was just no infrastructure for what I didn't even really think seriously about film until, later in life. But, one of the things that these small community organizations did was really, they gave me a place to be, and they gave, they exposed me to the arts, and they exposed me to support to a support network and what that looked like. And, you know, I think it's important. Like over the years, like I've mentored myself many times. Like I haven't lately just because I'm a new mom and the movie and a lot of other things, but I absolutely intend to again. And I think mentorship doesn't stop. Like I have wonderful women directors, not just women directors period, that have reached out and said, hey, how can I help with this? How can I do this? You know, here's my experience, and have been super supportive even right now. So I just think they're vital, especially for our kids. You know, they need an example of what they could aspire to. You know, I spent a lot of time as a kid, like kind of searching for, like Turquoise, you know, has that moment where she says, I just want something for myself, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I spent a lot of time trying to figure out what that was for me, you know, well into adulthood. Honestly, I'm aging myself on here, but, you know, I think those community groups, you know, expose us in a way, even we might not even realize it, you know, in this way that is formative, you know, that later on in life, we're like, okay, that made a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Jermaine,
Speaking of community groups, let me tell you one thing, like for instance, like how community groups helpful. The community group that was like super helpful for us was Juneteenth Fort Worth. And I don't know if y'all have seen this lady Opally in the news. She's like a 93-year-old lady from Texas, and she's like been working for decades to get Juneteenth made a national holiday. And when I've said I wanted to make a movie about Miss Juneteenth, she's just like, okay, fine, whatever you need, you know. And like last night, she came to the screen and she was just like crying. She's just like, I'm just so proud. But she's somebody who sowed a seed, and like, I'm making a film about it. Like, she's the reason Miss Juneteenth exists in Fort Worth.
Actually, I think there's an oral history of her that I watched the other day. Because I work with young people, and I was like, I'm trying to find this oral history, and hers popped up. So that's so funny that she was looped into the film. That's full circle moment.
Yeah, she's pretty fantastic.
So Jermaine had a question. How did you go about choosing when and how you would drop jewels in the film? For instance, how you highlighted gentrification was brilliant. You didn't overstate it, but you were paying attention. But if you were paying attention, you became aware of the pressure of keeping ownership in the Black community.
Yeah, I think that's another thing where, you know, I really, that's another thing that comes down to authenticity, because like that bar, you know, in and of itself has been passed down, you know, through generations. I think that's where kind of the gentrification is highlighted in that bar, maybe in the funeral home too. But anyway, it's been passed down through generations. And I remember the current bar owner is, you know, a guy that's much younger. Like his father owned it before him, and his father like passed in the last few years. And I remember he really fought to keep it in the neighborhood, you know, like that neighborhood is literally, they get further and further over. And I really wanted to, you know, in letting the characters, like as a writer, I get to a place where, you know, I'll have all these grand ideas and I put them down on paper. And then once I get to know the characters, they're constantly and consistently like speaking for themselves at some point, you know, in the journey. And that's another one of those moments where it just like comes out. I hate to not be specific about how this in particular happens, and then I'll kind of shape it in the rewriting and things like that. And then later in the edit if necessary. But that American Dream speech for Black folks sure poured out from somewhere. I'm not quite sure where it comes from, but I know the significance of it. And I know how important those spaces are to keep in the community.
Mm-hmm. We have another question from Naila. The film could have ended triumphantly with Kai continuing her mom's legacy as Miss Juneteenth and beating out her former rival's daughter. But instead, you get this other triumphant ending where Turquoise finally sees her daughter as her own person. At what point did you decide on that ending? Did you ever consider an alternative?
Yeah, for sure. I wanted her to win, you know. I wanted her to win. And it's another thing where, just like I was just saying, you get to know the characters and they start kind of dictating how the story will go. And then when she didn't win, I was like, no, like I was refusing to let myself write that moment. I was like, no, don't do that. And then it was like, yes. And I was like, no, because I'm not even to the end, you know, I don't even know what that fully means. I just know that happens, you know, and then later you come back and you shape that, you know. but I know now, you know, even in viewing the film, I'm still learning things, you know, about the film as I watched it. Cause, you know, in as an artist, you know, you have things that are even subconsciously in your head that show up. But I know that, right, somebody just said she gave up the ring for the victory. That's what it was. She gets a larger victory in the end. You know, she gets this acceptance of, you know, herself, and like Kai gets to decide who she'll be, you know, so it's greater.
Yeah, I swear I could talk about this movie all night, y'all. Like, and I've been adding
I
notes.
know.
notes that I want
Twitter,
to add.
tweet it all out. I want to know it.
We have a tweet off. Like, should we let some folks watch the film? Like, let me know what y'all think. If we let some folks watch the film the next like week or 2 weeks, and then we have like a tweet-a-thon where we watch it together again, and then we live tweet in like a week or 2 weeks. Okay, folks, like that 1 week or 2 weeks. Oh, the people said 1 week. All right. Well, everybody got a week to watch. And like check out the B-Roll Black Cinema Club Instagram for dates on when we can when we'll do the tweet-a-thon, because we will definitely tweet.
I want to make sure I follow that too.
I'm gonna make a note to myself. Okay, so we have a couple more questions. This is from Emma. The visual storytelling was so striking and subtle at the same time. What was your approach in terms of cinematography?
You know, I had this fabulous cinematographer, Daniel Patterson, who he is, I don't know if y'all saw Spike Lee's The Sweet Blood of Jesus. He was also working on She's Gotta Have It on Netflix, and has done quite a few things. But like one of the things I love about his work is that he photographs Black people so beautifully. You know, I was so scared, and you know, I'm always about, I need to be able to see, I need to be able to see the eyes. I need to be able to see every single, you know, I'm so big on emotion. Like I need to see every single twitch in the face. Like that's why you see my camera like right there, you know, because emotion is so important to me. And also, you know, this film is, and subtlety is so important to me, you know, so much, our faces tell us so much. And he was like willing to take that journey, you know, and we were talking about just kind of the visual. Oh, and visual wise, you see, y'all are gonna make me go pull out visual aids and stuff. But basically, like Gordon Park's Segregation series was an inspiration for the visuals. You know, a lot of that series, you can feel that, you know, grain coming off those photos, and it's got these really strong visual, beautiful photos of Black people. And you know, I did visual books for Daniel with Daniel, I'm sorry, my cinematographer, to kind of show him angles that I wanted to pursue, and, you know, how I wanted things to be composed. And I did the same with my production designer. Like I have all these really beautiful visual books that make me sad to look at because I couldn't get every single frame in the film, you know. But it was a big deal for me to be able to, you know, show the way that I wanted things photographed. And we didn't always, you know, indie films, you have to shoot fast, you know. We shot this film in, like, principal was 22 days. So there often wasn't time to set up things exactly, you know, the way that I wanted them, you know, like you'd be spending the entire day setting up a shot, you know, sometimes we just had to get it. So, but I think the cinematography mimics the environment. I know we went more handheld in the bar because it had more of a free flowing feel. And then when we got to the pageant, it had more symmetry. It was more locked down, you know, to kind of do the juxtaposition of that bar life versus, you know, the more classic feel of the pageant world.
We have a question from Terry. Terry, you from Fort Worth, right? Okay, so representing Fort Worth. She wants to know, what is your favorite restaurant?
Well, I have, one of the producers owns Spiral Diner, which is a vegan restaurant. And it's kind of probably sounds like an oxymoron in Texas, but it's like vegan diner food that I really like. I mean, the other thing is I'm not vegan, but I will eat vegan, you know, most of the time. But I also, the ribs at Lloyd's, which is the real name of the bar. If you ever get to town, you have to try them. Terry, have you been to Lloyd's? Rosedale? Terry says Spiral Down is good. Okay, so I get credit for that.
I haven't been to Lloyd's. I live in Baltimore now, but I've been on Rosedale a lot because I grew up in Fort Worth. But I haven't been to Lloyd's. I'll check it out when I go home.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of like you may have to go a few times before you get him because he cooks when he feels like it.
I'm gonna check it out. Thank you.
You hit me up on Twitter if you ever want the number to call him.
Okay, I will. I'm going to.
I'm gonna put the Twitter thing for the movie, and then I'll put my personal Twitter.
So as we start winding down, Channing, if you could share with us some must-see Black films for us. Everybody has their cue because we're all sitting at home for the most part. So if you could just share some Black films that we definitely need to check out while we're still stuck in quarantine. I hope y'all are stuck in quarantine because I've been seeing people at the club, and I hope it's nobody in this. Because Atlanta is wide open, Houston is wide open.
Everybody, hey, I guess the COVID is gone. I don't know what's happening. I'm with you. No. Y'all want old films or y'all want present day films, or what do y'all want?
Any film you think that we need to see?
Okay, I'll give you some films that were inspirations for this film.
I said all she went all
I'm crazy about Charles Burnett. He's a huge influence on my work, and just crazy about him. Compositions, everything, portraits of like Black life and Black people just existing and being, and I get excited. But I don't know if you guys have watched Killer Sheep. That's one of my favorites. That's a lot of people's favorites, but he has a lesser known film called My Brother's Wedding, which I think was more of an inspiration for this film because you just have this man running through the community trying to figure out whether he's going to be in his brother's wedding or not. It's so good. I want to watch it tonight. Julie Dash's Daughters of the Dust was inspirational for this, just a sense of world and strong character. Some of these y'all have already seen before. Of course, Cassie Lemon's Eve's Bayou is such a good movie. There's a movie, I don't know, and I'm gonna pull up, I'm gonna pull it up here because I don't know who the director is. I know it's an older director, and it's because it's a movie from 1974. But Claudine, have y'all seen Claudine?
Love Claudine and the soundtrack.
So Claudine was, a source of inspiration for this film. It's well in my head. I never articulated it. Then I was on the interview the other day, and this guy goes, this critic goes, this reminds me of Claudine. And I was like, yes, it does. But I never use it as a reference because I really need to go back and watch Claudine again and make sure there's nothing problematic. But I do remember that I loved, I just loved the grace that it's a Diane Carroll film, and I just love the grace in which she carried herself. And James Earl Jones is in it, and he plays a trash collector that I think is in love with her, and he's the most graceful person I've ever seen. It's just really, it's kind of romantic. But anyway, so that's a reference for that. I'm trying to think of some other great films that I've seen recently, but that'll get y'all started because that's a tall order. Just trying to look. There's one more that I had. Maybe I'll have to send it back to y'all. I have to tweet it to y'all. What are y'all on Instagram or Twitter?
Instagram.
Do y'all remember the Black Carnival movie that was made in Brazil? Does anybody remember that?
Oh, Black Orpheus.
Black Orpheus is one of the films that I adore. I wanted my wedding to be a Black Orpheus wedding, but that didn't work out.
No, that film I watched the first time, it was pirating. So it was like the captions are all in Portuguese. So I was just riding the wave essentially in silence, and it was the most beautiful film I've ever seen in my life. And then I watched it again, obviously with the actual subtitles and stuff, but easily one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen.
Yes. Yes. And this other one is like so good, but a film that everybody probably go, oh, okay, this is so run of the mill. But like one of the films that made me want to make films, and there is twofold, was I see Carmen. No, but I love Carmen, so add that to the list. But This Is What Everybody's Seen was The Color Purple. And it's not just because of Spielberg, who's incredible, obviously. It's because it's Alice Walker's source material. So when I talked about what inspired me for those multi-layered performances, that it was a film about Black women and intimacy. So I'm going to go back and watch The Color Purple just for my own reference. But I know everybody's seen it before, so they just don't want to watch it, again a lot of times. But I'll take a second look at it. Did anybody see Wattstax?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That's on my list too.
I'll put that on.
If you saw it, don't add it to your list, but that's on my list. Anyway, if I think of any more, I'll reach back. There's films that I want to see that came out of Sundance with me that I didn't get to see, because when you have a film in Sundance, nobody gets to see other people's movies. So there was like all these Black women who have films that I'm just dying to see.
Yeah, I think Zola is coming up next. So first it was like Miss Juneteenth, then it was Zola, and then there's the
40-year-old versions coming up.
Yes, 40-year-old version.
Farewell Amore is coming up. Time is coming up by Garrett Bradley. That's a doc I'm dying to see.
We actually, Naila, what was the Garrett Bradley film we went to see with Film Club? Was it something America? Oh, I hate that I'm blanking right now. When I remember, I'll put it in the comments. So we have not a question, but a comment from Shannon. She was saying she loved the church was where so many moments between Kai, Turquoise, and Turquoise's mom happened. Those scenes were so relatable. Going to your grandmama's church that she was super active in feels like such a Black experience, regardless of where you're from.
Yes, yeah, and I wanted to feel like that. I wanted to it to have the experience of touching people, because what I didn't want it to feel like was I wanted it to feel human. I didn't want it to feel like comical or far-fetched. But I will tell you, like, there's some chords in there that when I was talking to the composer about how I wanted that scene to feel, if like I know what it was. I was in a note session, like I told you I was going through those development programs. I was in a note session, and then people are just like watching. I was showing a rough cut before we sent off to Sundance. And they're like, "This is like a horror film," in this moment, like, because Turquoise is like terrified. I'm talking about when she takes her into the circle, Mm-hmm. And so the music has little chords that feel like, they're tiny bit like horror chords. It's like a cello. It's like whatever it is, but it should be a time for Turquoise where she like feels overwhelmed, and overtaken by her mother in that moment,
So before we wrap, do we have any last questions? Anybody drop in your last questions? While folks are thinking on their last call for alcohol questions, can you share with us ways that we can continue to support? Obviously, we're going to do our tweet-a-thon in 1 week as per everybody's request. But what are some other ways that we can support you, support the film? Where can we give you some merch money?
So I'm gonna go think about this merch thing, and then I'll reach back. But I want y'all to put y'all's Instagram handle or whatever it is in the comments so that I can go follow y'all and all that good stuff. But I think the big thing is just engage with us on we're most visible on Instagram and Twitter, and just make sure that you're getting the word out and telling people to go see the film. There's people, the film is on VOD and digital, and everybody's like, what does that mean? And so we literally have a thread at our Twitter that says you can see the film in all these places. There's also these amazing places where, you can go. Don't you guys have an Instagram like for the club? Do you the okay, perfect. I want to make sure I get that. But anyway, so there's this whole thread telling you where you can see the film, and it's on VOD and digital, just like Apple and Amazon and all those places. But Apple TV, Amazon Prime, and those places. But there's also a list of like virtual cinemas, because they're really suffering right now. Like BAM is carrying the film. Like I'm going to have a Q&A with BAM coming up here soon. And there's just ways to like be supporting these different like places. But however you access the film is however you access it. But the biggest thing is if you're having these conversations about the film, like there's a lot of, I think reviews that are floating around right now that have like lots of things in them that make me even feel thoughtful about the film and its themes and stuff. So just, say how you feel about it, and it gets people to have more conversations. So this was such a wonderful time with you all, and I'll try to get t-shirts together or something and figure that out. But I'm so grateful you all were supportive, and because I know you didn't have to be everybody. It's Juneteenth. There's so many things you could be doing, but I appreciate you being here with me.
Thank you for being here with us, because it's late. I know you got mama duty, so thank you for just answering all of our questions, being so transparent. Like, this really felt like a family conversation and not like, those kind of stale, traditional Q&As. So just thank you for bringing your warmth to the Zoom room, or I call them Zoom cinemas.
I know, and I've told y'all all my business. And if there's any, they might already have sent it in now, but I put up a tweet not long ago. If there's people that want to see the film, and if they reply to it, like the first 10 people that reply, it may have been 10 people already, but I was going to pay for it for them. I was going to say if y'all had any people, but just check it out, because I don't know if people already told. I'm still an independent filmmaker, so.
I know that's right.
But
and
thank y'all so much.
BAM as well, because BAM has been our partner since we launched in 2016. So I encourage everybody, when you watch it again, which I definitely will, please watch it again with BAM. And then I'll figure out the details on our tweet-a-thon after that. But Channing, again, thank you so much. Like, y'all, I have been stalking this film since the press release came out a month and a half, 2 months ago. I'm stalking the Vertical Entertainment, who I want to thank them as well for making this happen. And I wasn't hearing back, and I got desperate. I just slid in Shannon's DMs. I was like, I really want to show your film. And so I thank you for, getting back to me. Shout out to Neil, because, we had some other issues, and he was like, all right, I got y'all. I'm going to look out. We big one. But I just appreciate both of y'all just for giving this film to us, for the way that you timestamped that moment in Fort Worth for generations to come. It was a beautiful film. Still notes on notes on notes. So I'm sure me and some of my friends that are in the chat are going to go back and text some more and just talk a little bit more about the film. And for anybody that had a question that may have gotten missed, we will be putting this up on our YouTube. So make sure you follow the Vibro Black Cinema Club on Instagram. Also, be sure to RSVP to the rest of the events that Weeksville is having this weekend, celebrating Juneteenth. I thank you all so much for kicking it with us and sticking through some of the technical difficulties that we had, and just for your great questions and also for your energy. So until then, I guess I'll see y'all next week.
Thank you. I had such a great time, and this was such a great experience, and I thank you all for being here with me. You've been breaking the film down for me too, so it's exciting. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all so much. Literally, this was another great night. Thank y'all. Have a good
night.
Thanks everyone for coming out. Thanks Stephanie for putting this together.
You're amazing as always, Obes. The best work wife ever.
Bye-bye.
Bye.